When a cornered animal feels threatened, trapped, what do? Do they cower? Do they surrender? Or do they growl, snarl, and come out fighting, even when they're absolutely, overwhelmingly outmatched, outnumbered? What is the deep state doing right now? Hi, I'm Pastor Marty. This is the Afternoon Drive. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. And once you've taken care of that, smack the bell, click the word all to get notification of all of my rants, ravings, and of course, my absolutely flawless reasonings. Hey, and then please like and share this video. That's how we get the word out that we're here. That's how we build our algorithm, because we certainly know YouTube isn't going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching The Afternoon Drive. You've heard a lot of theories as to why the deep state, establishment Washington, hates Donald Trump. Now, they'll portray it as that he's this individual who got in there who really wasn't up to the job. He really didn't understand what it was to be the president as far as when it comes to matters of diplomacy and what are the protocols and decorum of how things get done in Washington. You know, the old one hand washes the other. You know, there's got to be some give and take. You got to be on the take, and you got to make sure that the correct interests are represented, and that he just didn't have any of that. No, what really happened, and there are several people that are hitting on bits and pieces, so we're going to put all those bits and pieces together. What really happened is he disrupted the system. He disrupted the money flow, the way that these people get their grift on and get their finances, usually from the military-industrial complex. That is a big part of this, and he interrupted that by not declaring any new wars. He did a little bit of limited bombing here and there, but only enough to get them off his back and at least get the media narrative to say he did something to Syria. But that was what that was. And of course, he took out a few ISIS bad guys, but for the most part, he was trying to withdraw us from conflict. In fact, literally one of the last things he got done was pulling our troops out of Africa, only for Joe Biden the very next day after he had been sworn in and inaugurated, sent them all back. And of course, we know what Biden is up to now with Ukraine. And so there is this thing that Donald Trump came in and he upset the established order, and that's why they hate him. There was a point where obviously they sat him down, the intelligence community, and they presented their Russia case to him in the hopes that he would shut up and get in line, because trust me, this happens to every president. It's like the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise. They get something on you, and then they hold it over your head. Hey, you Bernieites, have you paid any attention to what Bernie Sanders is now saying about the wonderful administration of Joe Biden and why he deserves another term? I don't understand you people, why you're opposing Joe Biden. He has done so much in the 3.5 years that he's been in there that he deserves our support. What exactly has he done? Because everything you're still complaining about, that you've been complaining about for, literally over a half a century. Oh, we don't have minimum wage. We don't have national health care. We don't have anybody really representing the workers. Oh, really? What was it that your president that you're telling everybody to vote for, what was it that he did to the train workers union? Yeah, exactly. Don't tell me he's for the worker. Don't tell me he's for national health care. You guys that are screaming about, tyranny and women's rights and autonomous control over their bodies, bullhog. When you try to mandate a vaccine, you don't believe in bodily autonomy. When You had the opportunity to codify Roe v. Wade. You didn't do it. You wanted the political issue, and that's all you are. You're a grift for an issue. You'll talk about these things, and then you rake in the cash, and that's why you got lake homes, and you live like a billionaire, even though you may technically not be one. You enjoy the lifestyle while going out and using the billionaires as your punching bag for a political line, and that's all you are. You're a fraud, Bernie Sanders. And anybody that still supports Bernie, you need to get your head examined. That all said, Donald Trump came in. He disrupted all of that. The true outsider. So think about what they've done to him. At first, they ridiculed him. That didn't work. Then they criticized him. That didn't work. Then they impeached him twice. That didn't work. Now, they're trying to indict him 4 times. Not working. He's more popular than ever. And they are terrified that he's going back to the Oval Office. So what will they do to fix things? What will they do to quote-unquote rig this cycle? Well, some of us, and I'm one of them, I've said openly, they're going into lockdown mode again. They're going, full-blown COVID crazy. Now, recently, Tucker Carlson was on with Adam Carolla. And he said, I don't think that's going to happen this time. There's way too much internet exposure on this now. We know the things that did not work. We understand now exactly what happened, because when this thing first happened, people were legitimately scared, and they preyed on that, and they pounced. But now you're going to have a lot of pushback, even from people who used to support all this and were pro. They either got injured by the vax, or they began to wake up and look around when they weren't terrified anymore and realized we've been had. So he said, this isn't what's going to happen next. He proposed what they're going to do next. And let me tell you, it's chilling. It's frightening, and he's probably right on the money. I'm going to play this clip in its entirety. It's about 5 minutes long, and then I'll comment on it on the other side.
And so if your goal is to maintain power, and if you think once you relinquish power, the problem with criminalizing politics is the people who do it imagine or know that it will be done to them. So once you start indicting your political opponents, you know that you have to win, or else they're going to indict you if they win, right?
Right.
And so they can't lose. They will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do COVID again. I know everyone on the right's afraid they're going to do COVID and mask mandate. They're not going to do that. They can't do that. If they've already been exposed, that won't work. There's going to be, no, what are they going to do? They're going to go to war with Russia is what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. And
really?
Yes, of course. They want it anyway. I don't think we'll win it, but that's a separate analysis. But I think it's a political matter. They need to declare war footing in order to assume war powers in order to win. I believe that. And I think the evidence suggests that's true. So if you're worried about our politics getting even more vicious than it already is, and people being hurt in our politics, which is entirely possible, you should be worried about the prospect of an open war. We're already at war with Russia, of course. We're funding their enemies. So we're fighting Russia. But I mean, an open battle with Russia where we say we're at war with Russia. I think that could easily happen. I think we could Tonkin Gulf our way into it, where all of a sudden missiles land in Poland. The Russians did it. Our NATO ally has been attacked. We're going to war. I could see that happening very easily. So if you're worried about that, you need to put as much pressure as you possibly can on the Republican-held Senate to force a peace, which can be done. The United States could force a peace in Ukraine tonight. We're funding one side. There is no Ukrainian army outside of NATO. If NATO withdrew its support for Ukraine, Ukraine would crumble in a day. So we are the only power in the world that can bring both sides to the table to force a peace, which will be unsatisfactory as all forced peaces are. Like each side will give more than it wants, but that's the only option. Otherwise, I would bet my house on it. We are going to war with Russia. And of course, the stakes are everything, our life on the planet. I mean, these are the two biggest nuclear arsenals in the world facing off against each other. So this is insane. They're insane. These are people who think men can become women, who believe that face masks save you from COVID. I mean, these are not rational people. Would they go to war with Russia? Of course they would. Again, they want to anyway. And I don't know why Republicans don't get this at all, but they don't seem to get it. And meanwhile, Republican leaders And Mitch McConnell's senile too, so I don't even blame him. But all this stupid Republican senators and McCarthy in the House, I mean, it's pathetic. These people are all on board with the war against Russia. Why?
Well, I think it may even be scarier because you say they believe masks work or they believe men can become women and so on and so forth. I don't know that they believe that. I think it may be worse. I think they can say or do anything to hang on to power.
Their view of Russia is very, and I can say this as someone who was, against the Soviets when it mattered, when they existed. But I'm maybe the only person in the United States who doesn't really have very strong feelings about Russia. I'm not that interested in Russia. I don't see it as our enemy or ally. I just don't have strong emotions about Russia. So I look at this and I see true hysteria. Like they've convinced themselves that our global enemy is Russia. And I really think they mean that. And certainly the Republicans mean it. The Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, the low IQ wing of the Republican Party, which is most of the Republican Party, is low IQ at the leadership level. They all think that and they mean it. And like someone needs to slap them awake. You're leading this country to its destruction. We've already lost control of the world. The American empire's in free fall right now. And we're going to lose the US dollar. And when that happens, we're going to have real poverty here, like Great Depression level poverty. And it comes from this war. And I don't understand why no one else can see this, but it's super obvious once you leave. Spend a week in Europe and talk to smart people on both sides. Like, it doesn't matter what their politics are, and ask them, like, what effect do you think the war in Ukraine has had on American leadership in Europe? Dude. And by the way, Western Europe is our only reliable ally in the world. We only have one real ally. And that's Western Europe. And Western Europe is being destroyed by this. The German economy was crushed when the Biden administration blew up Nord Stream. I know nobody cares, but if you think like long term about this, they're really kicking the legs out from under this country in a way that is not possible to repair, at least in the short term.
Wow. I don't want to bootleg preach right now. You say, Pastor Marty, what does bootleg preach mean? When pastors hold church conferences, special meeting that other churches come to, and he brings in guest speakers, sometimes a guest speaker will get up and he'll really, he'll do what we call ring the bell. I mean, he just hit it out of the park. It was a phenomenal sermon. Everybody in the crowd responded, and it was awe-inspiring, and it was awesome. And many times when a preacher has done that and he sits down, the host pastor gets up to make a few comments and then segue us into the next part of the service or dismiss, depending on where we're at in the schedule. But sometimes the host pastor will get up and he'll basically, over the next 10 or 15 minutes, restate everything that preacher had just said in that dynamic message. And you sit there and you begin to roll your eyes, and other preachers look at each other like he's bootleg preaching. In other words, he's getting in on what the other preacher just said. So I am not going to bootleg preach what Tucker Carlson said. But what he said was powerful. What he said needs to be absolutely chewed on, thought on, and discussed. And I would love to read your comments in the comments section below. So please do that. I'd like to get your thoughts, your insight, because I think he could be absolutely 100% right. This is where it's headed. What do you think?